In the winter of 1259, Polish peasants found something unusual in their fields. Mongol scouts frozen to death on their horses, both man and beast standing upright like ice sculptures, their eyes pecked out by ravens. The locals didn't bury them. Instead, they set up market stalls around the frozen corpses, selling hot soup while using the dead Mongols as macabre decorations. Children threw snowballs at them, dogs urinated on them, and one clever merchant hung a sign from a frozen Mongol's arm advertising fresh bread not made from human flesh like Mongol food. This wasn't fear anymore, it was contempt. For 20 years, Europe had nightmares about the Mongols, but now they'd become carnival attractions. The people remembered Legnichka, where Mongol warriors filled 9 sacks with European years. They remembered the drinking cups made from children's skulls and the slaughter of 100,000 knights in 3 days, their armor useless against Mongol arrows. They remembered cities where the only survivors were the cats because even the rats had been eaten by starving refugees. But in 1259, when the Golden Horde returned to Poland expecting another conquest, they found something new, an enemy that had learned from its nightmares. The Mongols were about to discover what happens when you teach peaceful farmers how to be monsters. They had created their own executioners. The Mongol war machine depended entirely on their horses. Each warrior traveled with 5 to 10 mounts, rotating them to maintain speed, drinking their blood for sustenance, using their hides for armor and their bones for arrows. A Mongol without horses wasn't a warrior. He was just a man in fur clothing, far from home. The Poles, under Duke Boleslav the Chaste, a name that would soon become ironic, had spent 2 decades studying their enemy's weakness. 3 months before the invasion, they began the most extensive scorched earth campaign in medieval history, poisoning wells with corpses, burning every blade of grass, salting fields with lime and arsenic, and leaving behind gift horses. Beautiful Polish mares infected with glanders, a deadly disease that spreads like wildfire among horses. When Mongol General Nogai Khan crossed the Vistula River in December 1259 with 30,000 riders, his scouts found a dead land, not conquered, not abandoned, but dead. Every village was empty, every field black ash, every well filled with bloated horse corpses. The Polish people had vanished, taking all food and even bones from graveyards, denying the Mongols even calcium from the dead. Within weeks, the gift horses began showing symptoms, coughing blood, neck abscesses bursting and spreading infection. Not understanding disease, the Mongols moved sick horses to the rear, infecting their whole herd. Within 3 weeks, horses were dying by the hundreds. Then the Polish ghosts began their work. Duke Boleslav had recruited peasants, not knights, men who knew forests, who could move silently in winter, and who had spent 20 years dreaming of revenge. They weren't soldiers, they were hunters told to kill Mongols like wolves. Their tactics were simple: attack at night, kill the horses, vanish before dawn. A Mongol might wake to find all his mounts dead and no enemy in sight. Without horses in winter, he was already dead. One Mongol unit awoke to find every horse's throat cut, the carcasses arranged in a circle around the camp as a warning. The psychological toll was immense. Mongols who had conquered from China to Hungary were now afraid to sleep. The Poles poisoned abandoned food caches, causing slow, agonizing deaths. A Mongol captain wrote, "The enemy is nowhere and everywhere. We conquer empty villages and rule over ghosts. My men bleed and see demons. This land is cursed."
By January 1260, Mongol horses were eating bark and dung. Warriors starved beside them. When the trap finally closed at Sandomir, only half of the original 30,000 Mongols were still capable of fighting. The Poles appeared to stand in traditional formation, knights in front, infantry behind, but when the Mongols charged, the knights didn't pursue. The ground beneath them collapsed into hidden trenches and spike pits smeared with filth to ensure infection. Crossbowmen targeted horses, killing mounts methodically until the Mongols were stranded on foot in freezing enemy territory. Then came the peasants. Thousands armed with farm tools promised silver for Mongol ears and gold for commanders' heads. What followed wasn't battle, it was harvest. The peasants cut tendons with scythes, crushed skulls with flails, and dragged warriors into the mud with hooks. Chroniclers described it. The Tartars died not like warriors, but like sheep in slaughter season. The ear harvest lasted 3 hours. Peasants took extra ears, fingers, even made necklaces from Mongol remains. Captured commanders were beheaded like pigs. Duke Boleslav spared Nogai Khan only to humiliate him. Stripped naked, painted with pig's blood, forced to ride a donkey backward through 20 villages while peasants cut off small pieces of him until finally castrating him and sending him home as a warning. This is what Europe does to invaders now. Meanwhile, at Kressenbrunn in Austria, King Ottokar II of Bohemia developed new tactics: hollow pike squares that Mongol cavalry couldn't penetrate, crossbows inside firing into kill zones, knights in full-plate armor immune to Mongol arrows. When Mongol tactics failed, the countercharge began. The slaughter was immense. Mongol heads were piled into pyramids along roads, 50 markers of 100 to 300 heads each. The stragglers fled into the Carpathians, where winter finished what the Poles had begun. Starving Mongols resorted to eating horses, bark, and finally, each other. Diaries found on frozen corpses confessed to cannibalism. Villagers blocked passes and waited for the cold to kill them. In spring, the frozen dead were stripped for weapons, gold, and tendons used for bowstrings. Their skulls became drinking cups, a reversal of Mongol atrocities in Europe. Venetian traders bought surviving Mongols from peasants, selling them as slaves to the Mamluks of Egypt, who delighted in enslaving the sons of their former conquerors. Mongol boys were castrated and turned into eunuchs. Girls were sold to brothels. Marco Sanudo wrote, "The Tartars make poor slaves. They bite like dogs and hang themselves with their own chains." In Poland, Duke Boleslav built a church from Mongol bones. Its mortar mixed with ground skulls, its altar raised where Nogai Khan had been castrated. Called the Church of Divine Vengeance, it stood for 200 years before being destroyed for being unchristian. The Mongol invasion force of 30,000 was annihilated. Perhaps 500 limped home, mutilated and broken. Europe then began the Mongol hunts. Bounty campaigns where knights and peasants hunted stragglers for trophies. The Teutonic Knights burned captured scouts alive as living torches. Hungarian lords impaled Mongols along borders. A final Mongol raid in 1262 barely crossed 30 miles into Poland before retreating under relentless peasant ambushes. Villagers rang church bells to spread alarms, poisoned rivers, and stalked the invaders like wolves. One Mongol commander reported, "We are not fighting an army, but the land itself. Every tree hides an archer, every stream is poisoned, every village is empty but watching." After 2 weeks of fear and starvation, the Mongols fled, chased by children throwing stones and singing mocking songs. The Golden Horde never invaded Central Europe again. In 1241, Europe had trembled before Mongol horsemen. By 1263, peasants wore necklaces of Mongol bones and drank from their skulls. The invincible had become the hunted. Across the Silk Road spread stories of Mongols defeated by farmers. The myth of their invincibility shattered, the empire fractured, the Yuan dynasty in China fell, the Ilkhanate in Persia collapsed, and the Golden Horde crumbled. Even today, archaeologists find Mongol graves in the Carpathians with signs of cannibalism. Some old Polish churches still contain human calcium in their mortar, the remains of the invaders who once called themselves the Eternal Blue Sky. But even the eternal sky ends at the edge of a Polish scythe. The Mongols taught Europe how to be monsters, and Europe learned too well.
The last Mongol to leave Poland, a scout named Kutus, mutilated and broken, warned every warrior for the rest of his life. "They say we were invincible. We were not. We were just men far from home, who taught sheep to be wolves, and the sheep ate us."